Hey there. This is Isaiah Diesel at R.H.E podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. We got a very special guest, Adam Vasilovich. How do I say that?
You got it.
Really? That was a total. Well, can you say it for me?
Yeah, Vasilovich.
Vasilovich. Okay, and that's. I was joking with you. Is that Serbian?
Yeah, it is. Yep. Go Serbs.
Welcome. I'm not used to doing my own intro, so my pronouns are he, him, and good morning.
Am I right about you, Adam? You're kind of like a moderate Christian? Or
I would say that's a pretty good summation of it. You know, it's funny. I mean, my great grandfather was a Methodist minister. So I got that you know, part of me that, you know, was definitely born into that side of it. But trying to really use, I try to really use over the years logic over emotion. I mean, do we really think Jonah lived inside of a well for 3 days? You know what I mean? Like it's you know, I definitely have belief and faith, you know, out there. But you know, it's again, interpretation and modernization of that faith, I think is kind of where I'm at.
So my best friend here in South Korea, he's American. He actually lives in China right now, and he's a physicist. And I just talked to him last night, and he told me that he's been a Christian his whole life, but he just tells me that he's kind of like, you know, kind of, I don't know. He says some days he's agnostic, some days he's more, he believes more. But he also said that one of the things that physicists like get really turned off about Christianity is that they try to say things like the earth is 6,000 years old or the universe is 10,000, you know what I mean? It just loses people. So I get it though. Anyway, that being said, actually, Darrington, I got a question for you before we start off. Who rocks the bald hair better, me or Adam?
Oh, that's a tough choice. Let's see. I don't know, Isaiah. You got it. You got a thing going on with the bald hair.
All right.
Like you pull it off quite well. I must say, you are a very handsome man.
Actually, Adam and I, thank you. I wish I could say the same thing about you, Darrington, but so Adam and I, we're also both married to Koreans, right, Adam?
Yep. Mine was just adopted from Korea and you know, transplanted to the good old Fresno, California, USA. Yeah.
Into an American family?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Blonde hair, blue eyes.
And you have two sons, right?
Yep. 2 boys.
I'm not sure if you'd ever be interested on discussing that, but I would actually love to go down that rabbit hole about what it's like growing up in, you know, as an adopted family. Actually, one of my brothers, we adopted about 17. At some points, some of them were only for like a couple of weeks, but some of them wind up staying until their adulthoods in our family. And one of the guys, actually, I hadn't even talked to him. I think the last time I talked to him was when my mother passed away. So we just recently connected over the last week. So it's been amazing to reconnect after about 13 years. But okay, so we want to start off with something a little bit non-related to the discussion today. So I wanted you to tell me a little bit about your basketball career, because I see that you're constantly posting. You know what you remind me of? Actually, now that I think about it, you remind me of, please tell me you've seen Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah. Yep.
Darrington, have you seen Napoleon Dynamite?
Little bits.
Uncle Rico over here.
Uncle Rico. Reliving the glory days, right?
Remember, he's like, there's this, when I was in college, they had like a cult in our school, like dedicated to Napoleon Dynamite. They thought it was the greatest thing. I mean, they would religiously watch it. And whenever I watched it, I was like, you guys got to be kidding me. this is the movie you guys have been obsessed about. But anyway, there's this funny scene. He's like, "Oh, I think I could throw this football over that mountain right there." Can you tell me a little bit about what you liked about basketball? And I think you set some kind of records, right?
Yeah, no, I loved the game. My dad played in college, and he was my high school coach, and just loved the idea that it was a sport that you could practice and work on your own all the time. So growing up, that was great. Always being able to be around it, and played a little bit in college too, kind of followed his footsteps a little bit. And yeah, I guess being able to practice a lot on your own. I guess the one record I did set was free throws for the state of California back in the day. So yeah, it was like on my for single season free throw record back in those days. I think it's been broken numerous times since then. So, I mean, that was like 27 years ago, 28 years ago. So, but yeah, kind of interesting trivia.
Who's your favorite basketball team?
I'm a huge Boston Celtics fan.
Okay. And Darrington, I know that there's a game called basketball. Do you happen to have any?
Is that the one where there's a big net, right? And you have to kick the ball past, they call it a goal banana? No, I'm working on it.
It actually is called a goal. That was the original name of it, was a goal, basketball goal.
We
they
are a basketball town. So like growing up in the 90s, the Suns was kind of a big thing in Phoenix, and there's a lot of activity around that area. And I've played a lot of street ball, so for whatever that's worth.
There you go.
So my brother, it's interesting when you think about like how does anybody choose their basketball team that they like? Like, I guess if you live in a place, right? If you're from Los Angeles, you're gonna like the Lakers, the Clippers. But for me, I really like the red color, and I really like silver and black. So I wanted to go like with the Raiders and the Chicago Bulls. But my brother, I don't know how in the heck he was all the way out in Buffalo Bills and Phoenix Suns. So I got to give him credit for that. I mean, that's just, well, nobody likes the Phoenix Suns. You know
what a crazy mixture, right? There's like no rhyme or reason.
So,
yeah.
So
isn't that interesting how arbitrary it is? Like,
yeah.
Right. So we got into a little bit, especially in the finals. You can imagine that. I mean, it got pretty intense sometimes, like seriously intense. So, you know what? That being said, can you tell us a little bit about what you do for your job and how long you've been doing that for?
Yeah, so I'm a commercial and residential solar developer for project development. So I've been doing it for about six, 7 years now, where I'll work on these projects, and it's actually for other additional energy type projects too within the EV market as well. But so a lot of renewable energy projects all over California, because that's kind of the mecca of it, where a lot of it starts. And then even beyond that, outside states, projects that I help consult and develop all over, and even a little bit overseas. And so that's what I do for a living now at this point. Yeah, about the last 6, 7 years.
So the first question we have, can you just tell us like what, I mean, I know this is going to seem extremely ridiculous question, but you don't have to get into all the whole science behind it, but can you just tell like a layperson, what is the benefit of solar? And maybe also, how does that compare to, this one's totally different, because if you're driving maybe from Bakersfield to Las Vegas, you run through like they have like these mirrors, and they're heating some kind of mercury or something up. So it's kind of like right. It's kind of like I guess it has to be technically considered solar power, because they're just shining mirrors at it. So do you mess with that? And like what?
Yeah. So the benefits for solar, I mean, there's economical there's environmental. So, environmentally, you're reducing the carbon footprint that's, released greenhouse gases into the air by going solar. So solar does that because you don't need all the coal and fossil fuels that you're using to power anything, right? Whatever it is that you're using to power. So there's an environmental benefit in going solar and using the sun's energy to fuel a house, a building, cars, whatever you're going to use it to power. But then for businesses, there's some incredible tax incentives to go solar. The government's incentivizing people to do so. That's how you get anything done. You got to incentivize people, right? So financially, and it saves money, right? So it's much cheaper to pull energy from the sun and use that directly on your house or business or farm or whatever than it is to use a utility company. And so there's those savings as well. So, helping the environment, you're saving money, and then there's some really good tax incentives to go along with it.
Hey, and you know what? Something else I've seen, because I actually graduated from Bakersfield College. So one of the things that they do, I think, is brilliant, is that they put like parking garage covers over the parking lot. So you're like killing two birds with one stone. So
oh yeah,
I swear, Darrington's from Phoenix, so you probably relate to this. You could literally fry an egg like on your car, like it gets that hot, So
I live in Fresno. Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Darrington.
Yeah, you can burn an egg on on the hood of your car here, and it's getting worse. The number of days above 110 in Phoenix are going up year by year. The ecosystems are really, really important subject, and it's going to get more important as we go along. So I hope that solar, really can come in and help in some areas with that. I know in Arizona, there's a lot of fights sort of politically as to what place solar has, which is weird because we're like the valley of the sun.
Yeah.
Here in Phoenix, like all we have that's our resource is the sun.
Right.
But I also understand that there's other sort of engineering problems.
Hey, when the sun is your mascot, right, for your team, that's
yeah,
exactly.
That's our natural resource.
Okay, do you got a question for him?
Yeah, I don't know how nerdy we want to get here. Usually when I talk about solar, the skeptics, throw out these like engineering problems. And one of the ones that I hear often is this thing called the spinning mass problem, where they say, you can only really get so much solar because if you add too much solar to the grid, then you run the potential of desyncing. And I was wondering if that's something that we should be worried about as people who care about our environment. Is there a limitation to solar?
When it's integrated with utility company, a little bit, they're, but at the same time, there's a time in where I live in Fresno from about 9 a.m. to about 11 a.m. where because there's so much solar in where we live, from the houses to the solar farms and everything, that PG&E, which is our utility company, pretty much stops running for a couple hours because there's so much solar that is to the grid. So that the misconception is that when you do get solar is okay, you're not using a utility company, when that couldn't be farther from the truth. You're actually still interconnected, and they're pulling that energy that your roof or that your farm or that the school, on those carports that Isaiah was talking about, they're using that to actually fuel other places and other times. So it goes back to the grid, offsets how much energy they have to transport through the voltage lines to get to everywhere, right, or get to their substations and be able to do that. So it is an interesting dichotomy in how the solar that is out there is how that's being used in a community atmosphere, how much from the grid is being pulled, and how that kind of goes back and forth. I think the big, what you were talking about, the spinning mass problem, is just, could it potentially put utility companies out of business? And it could, right? It's in Texas, there's over 100 different utility providers. People get to pick and go online and choose what rate and which company they want to get their energy from.
Most of those are resellers, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But it's way cheaper, and it's makes it competitive. In California, there's 3 main companies, and usually it's one in your area, right? It's a monopoly.
Yeah.
It's monopoly.
It's cheaper until an ice storm comes in.
Right.
Wholesale prices are great until an ice storm comes in.
And yeah, that fun term, it's called snowvid in Texas. Yeah, they had snowvid this past year.
Yeah, feels so bad for those people.
We actually interviewed a girl, or she's a lady. So she's a film producer, and she lives in Texas. So we were interviewing her like literally right in the middle of that. And this is actually like Ted Cruz had just gone down to Mexico, this huge fiasco. So we got to talk a little bit about that. She was, they're very frustrated with Ted Cruz because they all, they're not used to that. And I went to school in Missouri, so that's like, oh my God, you're used to those kind of things, and you just know exactly what to do. They take the lantern or whatever downstairs to heat the pipes to keep them from freezing. So actually here, in South Korea, we actually, our pipes did freeze, and so they unthawed them, and we just had to like run the water all day long. So anyway, so that being said, so I have another question. Is your average home capable of producing enough solar to last them for the day? Because I've also heard like you can't store it. Is that true? Like
you can store it. The only way for you to be off the grid and be fully capable of doing that is to have a combination of solar, battery storage, and a generator. And then you integrate all 3 together. There's a very smart technology to be able to arbitrage that to where you could. And there's people that are off the grid that have all 3 components. Very expensive, right? But if you hate your utility company with a passion enough, people will do just about anything. So you can fuel the battery during the day when the sun is out to fill it up. When the sun goes down and there is no sun to use, you can run that battery, and then when it empties out, you can turn that generator on, and as it's going down, to fill it back up with power to keep it all running, keep your house going. So you could do that. You just have to have enough of it, all of it, to do so.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. I have a background in data center, so I know a little bit about what they have to do to have power backup, and it's just amazing to me that we have the technology to do that at the residential level. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
My hope is that, because one of the things that we discussed is that we like to discuss is like the things that we have in common between Isaiah and I, even though we have different
hair is not one of them.
Global views. Right. But one of those is that we care for the earth, right? We should be stewards of our environment, and I guess my worry is that solar and battery power and some of these other technologies, as they come online, they might potentially be as hazardous for the environment ultimately. So I don't know if you can speak to that, like how does the carbon footprint look from the entire supply chain?
Well, and I think that's part of the controversy is the carbon footprint's amazing during its usage, right? When what you're getting out of it. The big dilemma is, okay, what do you do with it all when it's out of commission, right? When it's served its purpose, when it's you're not being used anymore. We're landfill, you got these batteries. And I think that's the big controversy, and that is a problem. So especially on the battery side, right? I mean, any kind of batteries, what do? Bury them in the earth, and then it's going to completely destroy the soil, as it decomposes, or it infiltrates the soil from that standpoint. So I think coming up with somebody much smarter than me, who can come up with a residual use, positive environmental use of those batteries, and what you do with solar, to reinvent them into something positive for the environment is important. I guess the good thing is, these last 25, 30, 40 years. So by the time they are obsolete, hopefully somebody has come up with the right answer for that.
So I got a question for you, because ultimately I think that trying to solve the energy issue, like, okay, you got to try to solve it, but one of the steps that I think is would be to help with that in the first place is that if everybody just reduced the amount that they're using. So for example, here in I can speak about South Korea. Here, like, it's just culturally, it's culturally like in vogue to like recycle, just everybody recycles here. Every community has like a recycling center, so everybody sorts, and so everybody does that, and then a lot of people take public transportation. So even you'll see like businessmen like on the subway, like some, like, these guys don't have cars or anything, but a lot of people they commute, and even people who have cars, people who have cars commute. So if you go to Japan, I mean, one of the things you'll love about Japan is like a lot of people just ride their bikes around. So I think that's one of the just little small things. Of course, one person got just walking somewhere for the day, that's not going to make any difference, but everybody collectively making those small changes, turning the lights off when you don't need them. And do you have any other how else do you think just each and every person, maybe even teaching our kids to be cognizant about things, like littering or whatever? What are your thoughts?
No, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Walking, biking, especially in California, the big switch is electric vehicles, right? Switching to electric to power whether it's your scooters or your cars or your bikes even too, is going to make a big difference. Reusing, I know a lot in supermarkets, reusing the same bags, bringing your bags to the supermarket, not needing plastic, or even paper, not having, being able to kind of reuse that is, some ways to do it. I mean, there's controversial ones out there, right? It's go vegan, only eat plant-based, so that, there's less boycotting of farmers and cattle being grazed and killed, and using, all the meat products that are manufactured. I mean, those are controversial things. But that's the way that the world, that's where, different people are fighting on Capitol Hill over left and right. So
actually, South Korea, it's totally not related to this issue, but South Korea prefers seafood to meat as it is. But again, part of that is just because of land area. They don't have the land mass to support that. So, and I think part of it is just healthy. Seafood is healthier. So you don't see a lot of beef. Not to say, of course, not to say that they don't eat beef. It's just your average Joe Blow or Joe Kim Joe person does not, doesn't eat that doesn't need as much. So actually, I want to break this up for a second because I know your wife is Asian, and I do want to ask you: has she suffered from any of the racist like insults or anything like that out in public? I got to tell you this, that as the father of a half Asian daughter, the amount, the furiousness that I've had, the anger, the frustration I've had with so many Christians going along with some of the hateful and hurtful and just horrible hate speech that I've seen going around. And not just, I'm not blaming one person. I know who you're going to think about, but just going along with it in general. You know, it doesn't matter who's saying it. But what are your thoughts on that, Adam? Because I know you have some kind of unique position. So can you enlighten us?
Yeah, what's interesting, she hasn't personally, I mean, who knows what people say in closed doors, but she hasn't experienced it so much on her end. We live in a pretty diverse community where we're at. I mean, when I when I go to the mall or drive around, go to different places, it's like 50 shades of brown, or 50 shades of beige or whatever it is, where I live. So it's like, yeah, I mean, there's everybody everywhere. So, but I'm sure, you get in some of these other areas, and that's not the case. I know she has expressed her concern. It's funny, not funny, haha, but yeah, not funny, haha. But the other day she's like, I need to get my CCW, being Asian. And she's never said that. We've been together for 24 years, right? She's like, I really need to think about, I gotta either have a taser or a mace, and as a white person, I'm like, man, it's not what you think, right? You don't think like that all the time. And so you're just like, oh wow, like, honey, you really like that's scaring you. And so I think, because now when we go out and we're walking around, and because she is Asian, I'm more on the offensive, thinking, is somebody gonna say something, right? So it's crazy how that is kind of, you have to have that little bit of a shift. But to be honest, in her lifetime, because she went to school first year of college at University UC Irvine, which is like 85% Asian there, because she was brought up in a white family, and the way that she talks, and I guess her likes, and not really knowing her culture all that much, she was actually treated the worst by other Asians because of that, and that she was they called her a Twinkie and a sellout and all this stuff. I'm like, how can you what we all don't, I think the major underlying issue in this world when it comes to race and discrimination and prejudice of all kinds, you can't control how you were born. You can't control what you came out looking like and being like, and that not accepting people for that is really a reflection on what you think of yourself more than what you really think of somebody else. And you can't control who you were born, who is your mom and your dad. You can't control that. So it's interesting. The feel that I have on it is I deal with it, I guess, indirectly, but I see it, and I see her point of it, and we just try to teach our kids to definitely rise above that and be better versions of us.
Wow, thank you for that. Actually, I was called the coconut growing up, brown on the outside, white on the inside.
Yeah,
it's interesting. I mean, I would love to go down this rabbit hole with your wife, because so growing up, okay, so my both my parents spoke Spanish. Neither of them refused to teach me or teach us, because they ironically saw it as a disadvantage if we were to learn Spanish. The irony of that, you cannot top that. So, my sister, she's a big politician in California,
yeah.
like you would never expect her and I I traveled with her. She's a lawyer, one of the biggest, she said history for being the first Latina, you know, elected as the the board of supervisors president. So anyway, they saw it as a disadvantage. So now, now I really wish I would have gotten that. But growing up, it did cause a lot of identity issues, because then the guys who were like from Mexico, they thought I was a salad. I'm like, dude, what the heck did I do? You know what I mean? I didn't do a damn thing. Like, I'm just born into this, born into this. So
about the racism thing, I mean, that we were talking a little bit before the show, and I said that I lived in San Francisco for a few years, and I called it the throne of civilization. I think California is sort of has a unique place in that it has a wide breadth of diversity, which a lot of places you don't have. Like there's other places in the country we briefly spoke about that don't have that much diversity, and that's the secret, man. Like, we need to be living amongst each other and maximizing our diversity, right? So if somebody has a different skin color, opinion, or whatever, whether you can control it, whether you can't control it, what's most important is that we love, and that we stand up for those who are being assaulted with hate,
marginalized.
yeah.
For the record, though, I'm now considering myself an egg after living in Asia for 10 years. White on the outside, yellow on the inside. So
I do want to ask you, Isaiah, because growing up, they called me this name, and I thought it was a compliment at the time. But what is a pinky gringo? Is that
a white boy?
Anyway,
not pinky. Pinche, probably, right?
Pinky. All right, do you got another question for the solar?
Yeah, like a lot of this is nerd stuff, obviously. But I see luminosity can be a problem with like the ecology of an area. So if you're putting in solar in a specific area, you want to be careful not to put too much reflectiveness on your roofs. But I've seen a lot of commercials where they have these like cool stealth tiles. Is that a thing? They're like black.
I mean, Tesla is an innovative dude. Love him. He's Serbian too, so I gotta give love to my Yugos. But they do have this. It's for years. They've been trying to innovate these tiles that are used as roof solar combination. Hasn't quite figured it out yet, and it's marginally expensive. Not the route that I would ever go. It looks really cool though. I mean, I definitely give it its aesthetics, props, and innovation on it. I think eventually they'll probably figure something out with that. But that it is a thing. It's just not a very it's not just, it has a lot of downs to the up of the cool factor. But like Tesla, everything he does is pretty cool.
Kind of gimmicky right now, sounds like.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because that's one of the things that people complain about in the HOAs, and you try to get solar put on your building. They're like, well, that for efficiency purposes, just the science of the way that the panel works, luminosity is important, right? It needs to be able to let the light in and let the light out.
Right.
And
a lot of people don't like that. So I'm just curious.
So, okay. Do you think, I'm going to give you my opinion on this, and I want you to tell me what you think about this. Like, I think that the government could, or maybe private, I should say private business could do a better job of solving this issue as far as environment than maybe the government mandates. And I know that sounds kind of bad, but for example, if you were to rate, let's say you took off all regulations of any industry, and then what you did is you had, like independent auditors come in and rate every company. And so if you did that, then say if companies getting an F and it's very transparent, like it's literally on the label, then people are going to naturally seek to find the best way to get the highest rating at the most cost effective, way, because it seems like, and unfortunately this should not be the case, but it seems like everything is coming down to money, that people don't want to make these, and
Yeah.
I love this quote. What is the answer to 99 out of 100 questions? Money. So I think, and I don't know, maybe solar plays a big part in that, but there's other things as well that, companies could be doing. But I think, I don't know, what do you think about that as far as solving the problem?
Well, I think it's two things. I do think, I mean, look at the vaccine. I mean, not to jump in another rabbit hole, but look at the vaccine, how fast that got deployed and created is because it was put in the hands of the entrepreneurs and the private, the private sector to come up with that. And innovation and ingenuity, timeliness, all that. If there wasn't the inventors and the entrepreneurs out there, we wouldn't have chairs to sit in and these Zooms to go on. You wouldn't have that jacket that you're wearing. People that are the creators and that let's just call it what it is, capitalism, and the ability to be able to generate income is incentivizing, right? So I think if you did put it in the private sector to come up with that, there would be that would be as long as it's incentivized too. So you got to incentivize people, and that's what they have done with. If you look at solar, if you look at going electric vehicles and huge rebates that you get back for going that route, you got to incentivize people. People are lazy and people don't like change, right? So how do you break through some of those things? By getting them to do that, you got to over incentivize. So I think if you can incentivize people monetarily, like you said, that's huge. Like you said, 99 out of 100. Having some huge incentivizations, having it be something in the private sector, that would be something that people can make more money on. Is obviously going to incentivize them to do that, and then I guess the opposite incentivization would be some kind of penalty, right? I think that's where you're getting at too. You get bad ratings, some kind of financial penalty or social penalty that also is going to force people's behavior. So, you've got to find that I think that that push and pull to do that. But like you said, I believe, putting things more in the hands. I'm all about smaller government anyway. That's just me. On certain things, and I believe that people in the private sector, they can also take advantage of it really bad. So you got to regulate, at least watch that part of it. But I believe that innovation and that drive to turn a profit in the private sector gets things done probably a lot faster than on the government side. So I do like that. I like that idea of doing that. And then maybe it would help drive, because it is a private sector that does create a lot of the pollution, right? And there's a lot of bad components to that. So if you can, I don't know the answer to this, but if you can flip that script around, right, and somehow incentivize things to go in that renewable energy source side of manufacturing, and all the pollution and everything from that side of the scale, incentivize everything economically as well for companies to do X, Y, and Z. And I think we could see a shift. So I know it's kind of an obscure answer, but not really knowing the solution. But I think knowing the behaviors of humans, incentivizing is penalties and incentivization, and both creates motives, right? Motivation, and you gotta do that on both ends.
Yeah, I just want to say one other thing too, that South Korea, I'm not entirely sure how they enforce this, but they have something called umshik seregi, which means food trash. So what it is, you put all your food into like a little bin or whatever, and then so then you take it to bigger big and you put it in there, and then they basically take that food and they go and they feed it to the pigs. So essentially, because there's a decaying when the food decays, it also contributes to that. So I think
Right.
that's one thing that would be really good to implement in America. And I'm not sure they give you some kind of fine if you don't do it. I'm not really sure how they enforce that though. So that's something that
we waste the most everything more than anybody else in the world, right? I mean, I think that's a big problem, is that we're not doing enough to maximize that waste and use it in innovative ways, because it's easy to just throw it away. Just throw it away.
Right.
Where does that go? Right.
Right.
So I think we could solve a lot of problems in this country if there was more ways to utilize what somebody else didn't need. There's secondhand stores for a reason. Someone's going to give something else up. There should be that type of mentality in just about everything that we've got, and it'll become we waste less and be able to utilize our resources a whole lot more, for sure.
The big question really is what can we do? We've got industry, which in my opinion has a huge the largest impact of the issues going on right now. And then what can the average citizen do, especially considering like in a place like Phoenix where it's impossible to ride a bike, not just because of the heat, but because the infrastructure is set up so that riding a bike is just not possible. It's more parking lot than it is sidewalk right here.
Right.
So what can we do?
Well, again, I think to reduce that, the carbon footprint is huge. So, figuring out ways to do that where you are using public transportation or carpooling with electric, find out who in your, at your work or in your neighborhood, or take the kids to school, what neighbor has electric vehicle that can do that, right? So going that EV route is really big to be able to do that, and that's a big part of it. The recycling side, and reusing as much materials as you can is everybody's own, I guess, own little part. And then there are going to be political sides, right? Whatever politically, if you're more extreme on that end, there's definitely I guess directions you can go in fighting that, if that's something that you want. But from the little things, that's kind of what you can control. Transportation is big, and omits so much. And just because it's what I do, get solar, right? Go solar, whether it's your business, because the great thing about on the business side is it's about 65% tax incentivized to help people go that route, help businesses go that route, and it's a 26% tax credit on the residential side. So get solar, and there's many people out there in my industry all around. I happen to think I'm a little unique in where I'm at, but in what I do, but there's a lot of people out there that I'm sure everybody could get to help them do that.
Could you give us your contact information and either website or Facebook or anything like that we might post in this the description?
Yeah, any way to get a hold of me. Most everything I have is Adam Vasilovich, right? So adamvasilovich.com is my own personal website. You can find me on Instagram like that, on Facebook like that, on Twitter like that, anything Adam Vasilovich. The company that I work with is called Turnkey Energy. So turnkey.energy.com would be our company website, and being able to go that route. And when I say I'm different is that there's about 98% of everybody in my industry just does homes, right? They just do the kind of the door-to-door thing. And I work with on the business side and the development side of projects, solar fields like we discussed, building projects overseas, building projects, consulting and advising for for big corporations and businesses and developers, multifamily units and whatnot. So I can do this all day, and I do it all over the country and even beyond, international, where I can get on and advise, consult, and help create projects via Zoom. Great way to do it. So I can help people all over. It's not just in my local area, and I do. So that makes it fun. I got too much ADD to just be in one place and do it. I love helping people. Serving others is what gets me up every day, to be able to do that. And I know that I'm making a difference for people financially and for the world, environmentally, is what keeps me doing it.
Mm-hmm. So have either of you heard of a town called Mitrovica in Kosovo?
No.
I don't think so.
So
I probably should have, but
yeah, exactly. I'm gonna tell you why right now. This town, I got to tell you, is the craziest town probably I've ever seen in my life. Okay, so it's in Kosovo, and I'm not going to go into the history of the Kosovo and Serbia. Okay, but there's some beef there, right? With the whole reason why Kosovo even exists, probably one of the newest nations. Some nonsense went down there. But anyway, this town is so unique because half of it is Kosovo. I guess it's all technically Kosovo, but it's ethnically divided. So whenever you cross a bridge, it's like it's Serbia. I'm relatively sure this is like the only place in the world that is like, it's like two countries in one city. So literally one of the bridges, there's two bridges that get into there, and they've literally taken all this cement and tires and all this garbage so that you can't drive past it, right? Then they have this other like larger bridge where you can drive into there. But as soon as you cross into that, and I was actually staying with like a Serbian guy, and so he lived on the other side. And as soon as you cross it, you see all this F the United States, F the UN, all this pro-Serbian stuff. But I got to tell you this, the reason why I'm telling you this, and it's related to you, is, Darrington and I have some very different views politically, religiously. We're mostly in line politically. And I'm sure you and I, Adam, we disagree a lot politically as well. So the point is, though, is that we need to be focusing on building bridges across. And there was our last president wanted to build walls to keep people out. And I have seen that the best way to solve this in the EU, when they've taken down these borders and they've you can freely go into different places. And so for me, with this podcast, it's a very small, limited. We have very small, we're growing our audience right now, actually. So, but the idea is that bridges are superior to walls. Walls they serve their places, but if we are going to progress, we got to recognize that, look, we're on this bridge together. Like, if the environment collapses and sea levels rise, like, we're all going to be affected by that. If this corona, like, I could not believe in what universe in the world that could possibly become a political issue. Because in South Korea, it doesn't matter what your views are. We've committed here to defeat this, because everyone has a stake in being healthy here. So I want to thank you for your contributions. And I thank you, Adam, because we normally send out some gift cards, and you have very graciously said donate it to a cause. So I want to tell you the cause we're going to be putting as GoFundMe in this description. One of our guests, his son died from some kind of infection, maybe about 7 years ago. And so now he's came on to our podcast about 4 times. So his son was a very humanitarian-minded person, and as a memorial, every year he makes some kind of donations to various causes. And so he had paid for this the schooling for these 2 kids in Africa to go to school. So I guess they're going to college, and they're looking to raise some money. So we're making a contribution on your part to that, Adam. So thank you very much. If anyone else wants to donate, you can find it in the description here. And I just want to thank you for your time, for contributing to this. And if you have any last thoughts, Darrington, I'll give you guys your
No,
last thoughts.
so I was wondering if you could help the audience understand what is the advantage of electric vehicles.
Yeah, well, electric vehicles really they drop that carbon footprint. I mean, the amount of emissions, the greenhouse gas that, you know, regular gas cars omit is through the roof. And so you're literally taking that out 100%. You know, so the advantage on the environment side is big on that end. For an individual as well, it is a whole lot cheaper to not buy gas, especially if you live where I live. That's $4.50 a gallon now. That to just go charge it in your house, right? You just plug it in, you roll up, or, you know, a charging station at the zoo, or, you know, and at the grocery store while you're shopping. You know, you just charge it up and then you go. So I mean, again, two big factors there on the environmental side is you don't never get smogged again, right? You don't ever have to pay for that. You don't ever have to do that because now you're not running off that using all that carbon dioxide and polluting polluting our environment. And it's cheaper. It is just cheaper, especially if you're in areas with lower electricity costs to charge it up. It makes it very, very economical. They last longer. Electric vehicles are gonna last a whole lot longer than your traditional vehicle as well. So it makes sense to go that route, and they're building them faster and better than even than the traditional cars that have been. So they used to be kind of geeky, dorky, very very granola looking, in the kind of way, but you can get, I mean, these Teslas are badass. They're coming up with diesel trucks that are EV. There's Lamborghinis and sports cars, and I mean you're gonna get whatever you want. And so it's a great reason to go. It's gonna change, it's gonna help really change the world. And electric vehicles are cool.
That just goes to the whole, private sector, their concept. There was this documentary about 20 years ago. It was called Who Killed the Electric Car? And essentially I think it was GM, they had rolled it out, and they're like, this is what it can do at this price. And they're like it just, nobody wanted to buy it. So it wasn't that they tried to kill it. It just like, there was no market for it. And the guys who were trying to sell it, they're like, man, we get it. Like, the amount of price you have to pay extra for the very limited features doesn't really make sense. So now that the private market is caught up to it, I think it's great. So D, last thoughts.
Well, I think no matter who you are, you got to take care of your environment. We are the stewards. And, if I disagree with anybody on anything, it's whether or not we're here to steward our environment, or whether we're here to dominate our environment. If there's anybody out there who thinks that our goal is to dominate and take full advantage of our environment and leave nothing to our children, you are not an ally.
Agreed.
Adam, last thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, what Darren said, I think is big. You can't just take, right? You can't take and not give back. And I think to all the entrepreneurs out there and private sector, public sector, whatever, it's okay to reap, but you got to sow, right? It's the farming mentality. And I grew up, my family, third generation farmers. So we still have a citrus farm here in Central California that we've got solar on. So, you got to, reaping and sowing, you can only take so much. You've got to continue to give back to continue to reap and sow. And so, we've got to have that giving back mentality. At the same time that we do take from it, we've definitely got to give back, do our part, and be unselfish in our endeavors.
Right. Well, Adam, we've been trying to get you on for the last 2 months. So I really want to thank you for making it. I know you're a busy guy. So we really want to thank you for your time and your contributions. And yeah, that was very interesting, interesting talk. You know, Darren and I, we disagree about a lot of steps, but as he said, this is one thing he and I definitely see eye to eye. So, you know, we're all in this rock together. So let's take care of it. And with that being said, we want to thank you for joining us at this episode of R.H.E podcast. In case you're not subscribed already, please do so and be sure to share this with a friend. So thanks a lot, and we look forward to seeing you back again. Goodbye.